Residents who escaped a high-rise fire days before the publication of the Grenfell report say some of them face being homeless on Monday. Around 100 people fled the flames in Dagenham on their block, where scaffolding was up to replace at-risk cladding. Newsnight spoken to one couple who filmed their exit facing padlocked doors. They're now being housed in a hotel, afraid they have nowhere to go after the weekend. I spoke to Kasia earlier, asking her first to describe the moment she realised her block was on fire.
You know, when dog wake up us, so we don't know it's fire because there's no alarm. So I'm saying to my husband, something is happened. So when we're going outside, it's just like smoke in the corridor. One side is very big smoke, one side is like less. So we choose just right side, to going outside.
Thank you, Kasia.
And we're just going to emergency exit.
And the dog did more work to save you than the fire alarm?
Of course, maybe we just that maybe when it's not when we not have dog in the home.
What were you able to take from your flat last Monday? What could you take out of the flat?
Out of the flat, I'm just pick up small dog because I'm worried about dog, and we just took passport and that's it.
Tell me what you filmed on the scaffolding, Kasia.
I'm just looking scaffolding. When we're going outside, it's like scaffolding is in the fire. People so much screaming. We can go out because it's padlock outside in the gate, and the police help us to going out. Not fire people, just police. We find the ladder, and we just jumping in the ladder, and policeman he jumping us from another side. My husband he help people to going out from the gate. Of course we in the shock because I'm just crying when I'm done this video. It's very bad news from today. We can take nothing because the 6th floor is completely damaged, and it's like 5th floor is same damage, and we can take nothing.
And your husband, who I've met, is an electrician. What's happened to his equipment?
Oh, now everything he tell us is like damage. So my husband is not working because there's everything left in the house, so he can find a job now.
So
because all stuff from work for my husband is damaged. So he already lost the job.
Yeah, we get very bad news today, so I don't believe.
Yeah, because
anyway,
is so much different.
In my country, is every situation like that. Yeah, it's more my government more help people in my country. Yeah, not everything be all right, but at this moment, anyway, I can talk.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I know, Jarek, it's the waiting. I've met you and you've explained the stress to me. How much is it difficult for you not knowing where you will live next week?
This is like stress for us. I can work, I can proper
Plan.
I can proper work, I can proper sleep because I'm just worried what's happened next Monday.
We know people are working very hard. I've heard you've given some criticism in your position with no home and you've lost everything. But can you tell me what you need to hear and what you need most urgently?
What I need now, I need to know just government, he give me just a place for stay.
And you need the news.
Because I don't care about stuff, which one I'm lost. I don't care now about stuff, which one I'm lost, yeah? But I need to know when I'm staying for next week, from next week, what's going on next week.
Well, with thanks to Kasia, London Fire Brigade is investigating the cause of the fire, which is not yet known. Barking and Dagenham Council told Newsnight it knows some hotel bookings are coming to an end on Monday, but it will be renewing bookings for those who need emergency accommodation and will inform residents of the hotel extension process. Block management, which manages the building, said, "We are working with all parties involved to ensure the safety and well-being of residents and continue to provide regular updates." Martina Lees is the senior property writer at the Sunday Times and the Times, who's dedicated much of her work to investigating the building safety scandal. Martina, shall we start with Kasia's account? No firm home on Monday when I spoke to her this afternoon.
It really makes me angry to hear that. I've been writing about the cladding scandal for almost since the Grenfell fire, and her story is not the first I've heard. Earlier this year, I spoke to a woman called Fozia. She bought her flat 3 years ago. 9 months after she bought it, she was forced to move out because the building is so unsafe that no one is allowed to live there. She has been homeless for 3 years, living in a tiny room in a student hostel, washing her clothes in a bucket.
So you're making a link to me of we're focusing on someone driven out by fire, but there's everyone else whose life's uncertain by the risk of fire and the fear of fire. So if we take the fire and we can take the fear of it, how many people do you think we now know are living with this threat?
Overall, across Britain, in flats that are known or estimated to have fire risks by the government, there could be up to 560,000 people still living in flats that have not been fixed since the Grenfell fire. So up to 700,000 people were trapped in flats with fire risk, and up to nearly 3 million with flats they could not sell. I looked at how many people have actually been forced to move out of the homes earlier this year for the Sunday Times, and we found over 15,000 people have had to move out.
Because the fire services said, these aren't safe, you're going to have to move out. But I wonder, so if
or there was a fire and they had to move out, just like Kasia.
So we are looking at a fire days ahead of the Grenfell report. That's what happened. The report was on Wednesday.
Yes.
The fire was last Monday. Can viewers think in 7 years the same patchwork of missed opportunity and bad responsibility, lines of responsibility exists now as exists the day before Grenfell?
Most buildings that are stuck in this scandal is like a mini Grenfell. The police, the Grenfell inquiry have said there's a web of blame at Grenfell Tower where it's a merry-go-round of buck-passing, as the inquiry's lawyer put it, and that is what goes on at other buildings too. It is a buck-passing between the freeholder or layers of landlords that own the building, the developer and the subcontractors who built it, the government who can pay for it in some cases. And people argue about who should pay and how much work should be done. And stuck in the middle are the people living in those buildings, and they still can't move, they still can't sell, they are still at risk.
Salma advised Sajid Javid when he was Secretary of State for Housing at the time of Grenfell, and Francis argued for high-rise checks at the TUC back in 2017. Salma, can you take us into the room when you were with a Tory Secretary of State? We're hearing from Martina, there's this patchwork of buck passing. Did you remember feeling overwhelmed by a patchwork of buck passing when you were at the heart of government?
I wouldn't characterise it as that in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy. But what was really apparent is that there were questions coming in that nobody knew how to answer.
Including you?
Well, yes, there were expert questions. You know, what was the cladding? Who was responsible? I mean, there was the immediate necessity about housing people, as you have just seen. And then there were the wider questions about what other buildings are not safe, and how were we monitoring this situation, and how did we know where those buildings were in throughout the entire country? And so what we found were that there were questions coming in, and the more questions that came in, the more we realised that actually we couldn't answer it, which is a big reason why we had the inquiry.
Right, you were working for the Secretary of State for Housing,
yeah,
and you couldn't answer the questions that were coming in.
No, absolutely not.
Francis, is this a failure of Tory government or a failure of government?
I think it's both, but I don't think that the Conservatives can escape the fact that there was a push for deregulation from 2011 onwards. David Cameron, bonfire of regulations, rules that keep us safe. There was too cosy a relationship with the construction industry, regulate yourselves, check it, mark your own homework. That was never a good idea. And there was austerity. I mean, let's not forget that since 2013, I think, we've seen 25% cuts in fire brigades. We've seen health and safety inspectors cut by a third since 2010.
Salma?
What I would really counsel against is creating a political narrative around this issue. Because if you look at the inquiry and the web that you've just talked about of blame, there is failure across everything. And there is a failure across a period of time that even precedes 2010 and the 2010 election. So if you're talking about fire safety guidance, we are talking about 2009 and the Lacan house fire that had not been updated. And I think the issue here is, and the thing that I fear more than anything, is that even after 7, nearly 8 years of this inquiry, we get to this damning report, and it is damning, and these failures, and we have platitudes afterwards, and we go back to business as usual. It cannot be business as usual after this report.
But I think what Francis is saying is that the Tories got in and changed regulation as usual to deregulation as usual. So that is a finger of suspicion,
yes,
which is pointing from...
And I think that what's really important about this is actually going back and having a forensic look at how that was actually done within the department,
right, and
how you looked at deregulation.
We have had a forensic look, because am I not right that the chair of the inquiry has said it's time to go back to a centralised state regulator? Is that not one of the findings in the inquiry?
Exactly. One of the things that came out very strongly in the report was the problem with privatised regulators and test houses who are paid by developers and manufacturers to test and certify their products. And the inquiry said that they were conflicted between making money and keeping people safe. And
well, this is what Francis calls marking their own homework. Can I go to something which is I saw on the video? I met Kasia and her husband, and she showed me the video. One of the things I wonder if we should go out on talking about is that although there was criticism for the fire service, the fires in that building, the fire engines were arriving. Members of the fire service and the emergency service were going into those flames, going in to assist police and fire service. So should we end this discussion by saying that paying tribute to the uniformed services who've not individually been criticised but are trying their best against this patchwork to save lives?
I mean, I spoke to firefighters in the aftermath of Grenfell, and the personal bravery but also trauma of those firefighters and what they had seen and experienced from the building they ran into when we as ordinary people would hope to run away from it is extraordinary.
And there was criticism for their boss class, but I'm just trying to get to the current, even this one from last 10 days ago, when you see them arriving with those flames 7 stories high, Salma.
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate the level of bravery and compassion and dedication it takes to be able to go into situations like that. And I will echo what Francis said, especially in the aftermath of Grenfell. There were a lot of those people that not put themselves just at physical risk, but also mental risk, because it stays with you.
Can I just say that one of the most important things in Keir Starmer's statement on Grenfell was that we need to start listening to the voices of working class people, including people of colour, and I thought that was spot on.
Okay.
And needed to be said. Well,
I think what we've done is in a brief discussion about something that is so affecting 500,000 people right now, many of whom could be watching, is tried to pay tribute to brave uniformed services as well as air some of the criticisms in public policy. So thank you for your expertise. It's been very nice to meet you. Thank you very much indeed.